shock bag. Alright, today I'm changing out the front and the rear sprocket on the WR. Keep in mind, I am not a professional. This is just for entertainment. Tools I used: breaker bar, torque wrench, 27mm socket, 12mm wrench, 6mm Allen key, 5-in-1 tool, hammer, punch, loctite, glue. So these are the sprockets I got off of Amazon. They're JT sprockets, 12 tooth in the front, 44 tooth in the rear. The reason I went with this was so I didn't have to change out the chain. So this setup is close to having a 48 tooth sprocket in the rear and a 13 tooth sprocket in the front. So the ratio is now 3.67 with this setup. So right here I'm using that 5-in-1 tool to de-peen the nut. I found that this tool worked really good. Just keep in mind I'm being pretty gentle around this the drive axle. You don't want to strip threads or anything, so just be careful. Also keep in mind, if you are gonna do this, it's a good idea to get a brand new nut. When you de-peen something like this, it just weakens the metal, so if you use the same nut and you peen it again, it's just not going to be as strong as a brand new nut. Keep that in mind. Right here I'm trying to show you that I activated the rear brake by putting a piece of wood in between the foot peg and the brake. That way the rear wheel doesn't spin when you're trying to loosen the nut. So here we got the rear brake activated with the piece of wood, and we have the bike in neutral. You don't want to have it in gear because it could put too much pressure on the gears. Right now I'm just braking it with the breaker bar. And there it goes. So before I get the bike on the stand, I'm just going to loosen the rear wheel axle nut. That way it's just easier to get the rear wheel off on the stand. So at this point the rear wheel is off, and now I'm just taking off the drive nut so I could get the front sprocket off. So now we're getting to the rear sprocket. I'm going to take off the stock sprocket and put the new one on. Pretty straightforward, using a 6mm Allen key and a 12mm wrench. So in my opinion, this was like the biggest pain in the ass of this whole thing. These bolts are easily stripped, so just be careful of that. I had some issues. Alright, now I'm just going to put the screws and the nuts back on. I'm using some blue Loctite just to be safe, even though I do torque these down to 25 foot-pounds torque each. Alright, before I torque these down, I'm just tightening them up by hand in a star pattern. So I forgot to videotape myself torquing down the rear sprocket, but I did. It's 25 foot-pounds, like I said earlier. Now I'm just putting on the new JT 12-tooth sprocket. So keep in mind when you're putting this front sprocket on, you're supposed to use molybdenum disulfide oil, according to the manual. So make sure you have some on hand if you're going to do this. All right, we got the bike at the stand. We have the rear brake activated. The bike is in neutral. We're gonna torque the drive nut to 69 foot-pounds. All right, with the nut torqued, just gonna peen it now. I'm using a punch that I had lying around. I'm sure they have specialty punches for this, but sometimes you gotta use what you got. Alright, so we're all done here. We got the 44 tooth sprocket in the rear, JT, we got the 12 tooth in the front. I know a lot of people say that you shouldn't put a 12 tooth in the front because it's going to wear the swing arm prematurely. I'm just going to keep an eye on it. And if the slider does start wearing prematurely, then, I'm just going to have to replace it, I guess. This is just an experiment. I don't see many people doing this. Usually see people just change the rear sprocket to a 37 or something, and then you have to buy a new chain. I didn't want to have to buy a new chain and deal with it because I just ain't got time for that. It took me long enough to just change these sprockets out. So, hey, we're going to give it a try. I'm going to keep you guys updated how it is. I'm going to see if there's any difference in the bike handling, and I think it will be a good experience. It's my feeling that the more information that's out there, the better for everybody. So before I forget, I just wanted to mention that I set the chain tensioners to basically the same exact spot as the stock sprockets were set to. So it didn't really make a difference adding these sprockets, adding the 44 tooth in the back and the 12 in the front. It didn't really make a difference to the tension of the chain. Just wanted to mention that. That's all I got right now. I'm gonna go test this out at some point. Yeah, the good weather's here. It's always a good thing.